Hey, Warren, glad you're here with me today. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Rick, this is a real privilege and a pleasure to talk to you. I've respected you and your work and your affinity for people. I think we do share some very similar things in that respect, in terms of just liking people. And I've always enjoyed being around you and Charlotte many times.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. This is a show today a little bit about religion, and you were a PK. You were a preacher's kid. Tell me about that. Tell me
Yeah,
about your background and growing up as a preacher's kid.
yeah. I don't know that you ever get to divorce yourself from being that because it shapes so much of what you are and how you react and respond. And I was the oldest of four, and my dad moved quite a bit. When I was born in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, my dad was still a Navy hospital corpsman at that time, and he completed his 9 years. But that also required that we moved from Camp Lejeune to Pensacola to Oceanside, California. And then he got out of the service and wanted to go into the ministry. And that's when we moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee, where he went to Tennessee Temple and did his seminary there as well. And from there was back to Jacksonville, North Carolina, Monroe, North Carolina, Marshville, North Carolina, and then Charleston by the time I was 13. And when I got to Charleston, I had been the new kid in the class so many times in school that I wanted roots. And I never left Charleston. Moved here when I was 13, worked my entire professional career, and now in retirement. And in many ways, Rick, it's come back to me because all three of my grown children live in Charleston. All four of my grandchildren I get to see constantly. And that's been a real blessing that when I, for whatever the reason, as moving around so much, wanted to have roots, and now it's come back to me in a
It's
real
interesting.
way.
A few years ago, I had a pickup truck, and I moved here in 2000, but I had a bumper sticker on my truck, and it
Uh-huh.
said, "I'm not from Charleston, but I got here as fast as I could."
Right. And there are so
Yeah.
many other folks who have come to Charleston in the years since I've been here. I saw a bumper sticker the other day as I went down the interstate, and it just said "We full." And
I,
I've
I'll
been
vote
getting,
for that as
yeah,
living out on Wadmalaw and trying to get off Johns Island at rush
yes.
hour. It's not a very fun thing. Somebody that we both knew, Pat Conroy,
Mm.
he moved to Beaufort as a 13-year-old
Oh, I
and
see.
never left.
How about that?
Similar thing, military family, had moved and moved and moved
Yeah,
and desperately wanted roots. And of course, obviously, he went to the Citadel and
sure.
became a writer, but he never left the Low Country either.
Well, to really sharpen more of the point to your question relative to my dad being a minister, he was a hellfire, damnation, uh, really take you to the woodshed kind of preacher. And I was raised in that environment. Eventually, married a woman who was Presbyterian, and we joined the Methodist Church. So there was a real attempt in our early marriage to find something that we both could kind of
Move to
understand
the
and,
middle.
and
Got to
connect
move
to.
to the middle.
Exactly. And that's where we landed. And that's where I really came to know you for your membership there at John Wesley United Methodist Church in Charleston. But relative to the childhood and my brothers and I still, I'm the oldest of four. I have a sister who is the fourth of our clan. And both my parents are gone now. And we laugh and at the same time marvel at how we all turned out. My dad never did get a minister in any of the four of us that came after, and he would joke to me about that. The closest he would tell me he got was my wife Judy, who spent 13 years in youth ministry, and he kind of claimed that as some kind of something to say. But we had some very austere and I don't know, it was normal for us, but when my dad started out as a minister, he started doing some work in the mountains of Tennessee in his final year in school. It was almost like practice teaching. Well, this was practice preaching. And we went up as young children to a young minister and his wife. I remember going up on Sundays into the mountains of Tennessee and in two-room churches where they would use a wire across half of the sanctuary to cordon off rooms for Sunday school classes to take place. And then when that was over, you'd push the sheets away, and then you'd have the main service. There would be outdoor restroom facilities that you would have a path to walk towards. And all these things galvanized and had impressions on me as a young person. And that was just what my dad's ministry and what he felt led to do. A church out of Atlanta was so taken with my dad's passion and ministry that they donated a car to him to drive to these various places. He felt so uncomfortable about driving. This was a Cadillac with big wings on the back of it, Rick. And he felt so uncomfortable in that and what message it might show that he painted the sign on the side saying, "This car a gift from Atlanta, Georgia, Baptist Church, Eastside Baptist in Atlanta, Georgia." And he wanted to make sure people didn't misrepresent him as a young preacher riding around in a Cadillac.
In a Cadillac.
He felt like he needed to explain
Well, see,
it.
if you got 4 kids, you're gonna need a big car.
Yes, and Rick, I mean, this car. There's one. My sister would sit in the middle, between my mom and dad. The 3 guys, the 3 boys in the back. No seat belts at this point. No air conditioning either, for that matter. And my dad had a 8-track tape that I remember he used to mount under the dash, which was a real. My sister was the only one who could sit up there and get her feet underneath it. And so those were the kind of that's the backdrop against which a lot of my early years relative to my dad's ministry and what it took to us. I was always, as the oldest, considered to be the example setter, and I needed to take a certain amount of responsibility for the younger children. My mom had a way during church services of reaching over and either delivering her message with a look in the eye or a pinch to the leg to try to straighten up. My dad, even through his later years in ministry, when he got bigger churches, he'd call us out in the middle of a sermon if one of us was acting up. And that wasn't going to work out for any of us when we got home, if that was the case either. So it's interesting to even try to reflect on some of those days. And when he was a young preacher in seminary, he worked 2 other jobs besides going to school. One of those was at the Boys Club, where he became the program director in Chattanooga. And the other would work a midnight to 7 a.m. shift at a local tanning hide, unloading these hides from the, and it would smell to high heavens when he came in from the smell of those hides that were being offloaded to be tanned and made into some leather goods for others. But that gave me a real understanding of work ethic. And it also told me just how passionate he was about the call that he was being given to go into the ministry.
Well, I know that you and I both have a great affection for music. And I imagine that over the years in so many of those churches, so many of our popular singers, both
Yes,
black singers from gospel music or country singers,
yes,
they grew up in singing in the church.
absolutely. And I did a fair amount of that myself, only primarily because I was willing and I enjoyed music. But my dad was a terrific singer. He taught himself to play the accordion, and he also uh, would play a little bit of piano, but he just knew chords. And I still have a phenomenal affinity for the Gaither music. And I will sit at 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 the cost of some criticism from those in the house for extended periods of time and just get ministered to by music and sit there in my lazy boy and start tearing up for reasons I can't even explain because it unleashes a certain spirit and a love for the music ministry. And that still exists even to this day. And I'm in my early 70s here, and I still remember those old grand songs, in some cases that you kind of knew, but you almost memorized because they were so repeated through the various services that we attended.
Yeah, I think a lot of times in church when we play what I call standards, the
Mm-hmm.
great hymns, I get a little teary-eyed. You remember
Sure.
family, you remember places that you were. It hits a nerve. I'll tell you a funny story. I had a business partner who recently retired, Ron Cook, and he too is a preacher's kid. His dad was a Church of Christ minister and
Okay.
later was the dean of men at David Lipscomb Church
Oh,
of Christ School, a pretty good
yeah,
basketball playing
that's right.
school. Um, and when his dad was in his 90s, he was in a nursing home, and his daddy said to Ron one time, he said, "Ronnie, I never told you this, but I so appreciated you always going with me to the funerals."
Okay.
And Ron said, "Well, Daddy, while you preached, I'd go downstairs and eat all the deviled eggs."
I remember. Oh, well, it's interesting. I've laughed about the many dinner on the grounds, I used to call it. And I know this sounds like one of the most ancient people you may have ever spoken to, but people, they would get somehow sawhorses on either end and chicken wire that would be used to hold the plates of food and the dishes that people in the congregation would bring. There was always enough. It generally included some fried chicken, and then after that, everybody would bring the various sides, and you'd go down the line, fill your plate. Dinner on the grounds is what I remember. But there would be various reasons for that, whether it's a homecoming or a revival. Or my father eventually left pastoral work and went into full-time evangelism, and he did that for a period of time before he then returned to pastoring. And he was a phenomenal counselor and came from a broken home and had a terrific passion and desire to help those who didn't have the most. I can remember in various towns that we would live, I'd go with him. You're gonna laugh at this, but he concocted and built a trailer that he would tow behind this Cadillac that I mentioned, as long as it kept running. And we would go, my brothers and I would go with him on Saturdays. Now, I think that had more to do with my mom saying, I'll keep the girl for a little while today, but you got to take these boys with you. I can't keep all of them here today. He would go into small little Tennessee and Georgia towns on Saturday afternoon, back that trailer up, which was a pulpit when you opened it up, and he would stand in the back of that and preach in town square or in Main Street, and he would have my brothers and I go out and hand out little flyers that they called gospel tracts, and this would invite people to come hear this preacher standing on the corner, and that's somehow how he honed his craft to an extent. But he had such a passion for lost souls that's how he served. And we would come back from some of these situations, and I tell this story in a rather understandable way that my siblings all relate to. But there were some nights and some days we would come back and people would have left groceries on our front porch. We didn't really know that we didn't have food in the house, but somebody did, and somebody felt led to help my folks out in that regard.
It
And
shows the decency of people,
yeah,
and that. And I hope we haven't lost that.
mm,
We're looking for so many institutional answers these days, and we are the institution. I mean,
yeah,
we are the people that give. I want to pivot a little bit
uh-huh,
to another religion in America, which is sport,
sure,
and that became kind of your religion too.
yeah,
So when did you know you wanted to work in sport? I mean, you always were an athlete.
right,
Talk about that and how the transition became
sure.
to being a sportscaster.
Yeah, I was a pretty good high school player. I was an All-America at North Charleston High School here in the greater Charleston area, and had an opportunity to play at what was then called Baptist College of Charleston. My dad, in my senior year, said he'd been called to fill in some places, and my senior year of high school, he said, "Warren, I'm not going to pull you out of your senior year. I've got some opportunities at some other churches. I'm going to figure out a way to keep us here." But he said, "As soon as you're done, we're moving to take a church. I've got an opportunity up in Baltimore," and that's what they did. I finished high school, and I decided, well, I think I want to stay in Charleston. Had two different opportunities at the Citadel and at Baptist College, and I opted to go with the Baptist College opportunity. And while visiting Baltimore, after my sophomore junior year, I'd go home there in the summers. I say home; it's where my folks were. It wasn't home to me necessarily, but I saw some local guys doing television up there, and the light came on with me as to, you know what, I think I can do that. I came back, pursued a degree in radio and television, minor in English, and did an internship at a local TV station my senior year. And the day after I graduated in May, I started the next morning at a local TV station as a reporter slash photographer. I was a one-man band, kind of learning as I went for the first 6 months. And then I started filling in sports because that's really what I knew, and I could have such more subjective approach to it, and could have some fun with it, and started filling in with that, and then took the job as a sports director there 3 years later, and worked at that television station for 31 years, and did sports most of that time. Did a little bit of news in my latter part of my career, and I ended up with 40 years in the business in television in this town. And I was pretty good on my feet, pretty good live, and I would be sent to a lot of different things out of town that involved local teams or statewide bowl opportunities or masters. They're just 2.5 hours away.
Well, you love golf. I mean,
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
a great golfer. You love to play. I have to believe that covering the
Oh
Masters
my goodness.
was probably one of the highlights.
I was there every year from 79 to 2004. And the first year that I wasn't there after I got out of the business, it bothered me that they still played and I wasn't there. I thought that things would have to change since I couldn't go there anymore. And
What
then
was your favorite in all those years? What was your favorite match? It's like picking your favorite child, I'm
yeah,
sure. But what
but
was your
but in
favorite?
1986, Jack Nicklaus won for his final trip.
Yeah.
And when I got to the course that day, he was making a move already. And that became all the eyes you could hear it, that there's such a capacity there to hear roars and yells from different parts of that beautiful
Through the
landscape.
pines, those roars of the crowds through the
Yes,
pines.
and
Yes.
you can tell by the very tone of that roar if it was an eagle somewhere back on 13 or a birdie say on 12 at Amen Corner, or somebody hits it in the water somewhere trying to go for the green. You can hear those things, and you end up just wondering, was that Nicholas that just did something? So that day when I get to the golf course, he's making a move, and I got very caught up in the story of his son on the bag. that day.
Yeah.
Now, his son was an accomplished golfer himself, Jack Nicklaus II. But what he knew about his dad when young Jack began to grow up, he hadn't seen all of that. He knew how people revered him, but he'd never been in those circumstances at the age he was at this point, where he was almost 30 years old, I think, carrying his dad's bag and seeing this golden bear all of a sudden capture lightning in a bottle again at the age of 46 and win the Masters.
Well, there are two great stories. One is the longtime CBS producer, Frank Chirkanian, was profane, curmudgeon, but an unbelievable
Yeah.
character, but an unbelievable producer of golf. He has a cameo in the movie Tin Cup,
Sure.
where he plays himself. But somebody came to him and said, "Jack, what about Jack?" And he kept saying, "Jack's not going to be a factor today. Don't cover Jack. I don't want to hear anything about Jack Nicklaus." And then he birdies another hole. The guy goes, "Well, he birdied. I don't want to hear. I'm telling you, I don't want anything."
Yeah.
Well, you remember he eagles 15, and there was a young announcer named Jim Nance that obviously has gone on to pretty good career, but early in his career at CBS, he covered 15. And when he eagled 15, Nance said, "The bear has come out of hibernation."
Well,
And then Frank Chirkanian was like, "Well,
yes.
maybe we better follow Jack Nicklaus."
Well, there are so many phenomenal stories around that day. One even of Jack wearing a yellow shirt that he told his wife Barbara before he left. That he said, "You think this would look good with green?"
Wow.
And he went to the course believing something might happen that day. And so in those days, this has all changed in years since, because the tournament has gotten so big and so popular that now they just offer mass interview opportunities with the winner. In those days, local media, and I was one of those that they included in that, would get a chance to stand under the big oak tree behind the clubhouse and interview the winner. You would get 2 minutes. You'd get 2 minutes. So there's a little pressure on making sure your questions work and you evoke the right opportunities there. And I wanted to talk to Jack, sure, about the round a little bit, but I want to talk about him having his son on the bag for that round and for this unbelievable accomplishment as being the oldest winner and his sixth one. There was so much going on that day, and he and I both kind of get tears in our eyes talking about the impact and the magnitude of the moment with his son getting to enjoy watching his dad do it one more time. So there's that. I've got a pretty good story on Nance that I want to share with you. And it involves, for many, many years, either the Masters or the Heritage Tournament would fall at Easter break. And from time to time, my family would come to see me in Hilton Head if it was Easter break. And we'd go to church together on that Sunday. They'd be out and just kind of having a good time at Hilton Head. And so we get to this one church on this particular Sunday, and it's packed, as you might imagine. And we get up in the balcony where the most available seats are for our family, and I see about 4 rows ahead of me, and the pew sitting about 4 rows in front is Jim Nance and his wife and young child. The minister gets up in front of the congregation, Rick, and he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome everybody here to the island. It's always good to have so many folks here for this event, and I know a lot of them are going to see the golf this afternoon, but we thank you for being with us." He says, "It's always a danger if you start and single out somebody, but I see Warren Pepper. We've watched for so many years sitting up in the balcony. I just want to say hi to Warren and thank you for being here with us today at the church service." Well, my guys are looking at me and they're saying, "Dad, Jim Nance is sitting 4 rows in front of you. Why is the minister recognizing you?" I said, "I'm not sure, but I stood up and thanked the minister and just gave a nod. Well, that afternoon, I'm hustling to try to get an interview with the winner, and Nance is coming off the tower at the 18th. And as he comes by, I come by, and he turns around and he says, "Hey, Warren, Warren." I said, "Hey, Jim." He says, "I saw you in church this morning." I gave him a thumbs up.
Well, that's so good. I will say this.
Oh,
The best, for me, the best Sunday of the year,
hmm.
though, is go to church on Master Sunday and come home and watch,
Oh my.
because that tournament, it doesn't begin till the back nine on Sunday
Right.
afternoon, and it's just and for you to have been there all those
Yes.
years and
Yes.
all that, and it's really really good. I want to
Yes.
compliment you before we leave on your column in the
Oh,
Post and Courier on Sunday. I grew up a big Louis Grizzard fan.
okay.
Grizzard had a lot of similar background. He was a sports writer
Right.
for years and years, and then late in his career, Jim Mentor, who was an editor of the paper, said to him, "Write a lifestyle column," and he famously wrote a wonderful column, and wrote some books from that.
Right.
You remind me of the tone that Grizzard had
Ooh,
in
wow.
what you write about. I love this, the slice of life.
Yeah.
You'll take a random thing, and because that's life, and
Yeah.
you'll say, "Let me tell you a story about this random thing," and I just love it. It
Thank
is
you.
just so so good, and I think Grizzard and you both, having some wisdom, having seen a number of things, you're
Yeah.
able to boil things down kind of that matter.
Well,
Uh,
thank you, Rick. That means a lot. And I actually bumped into Grizzard covering the Braves one year. It happened to be between innings at a urinal, so there really wasn't a whole lot going on that you could make conversation about. But for to be compared to him is woo, because I came to that very late after I'd left television. The local newspaper, Post and Courier, gave me a holler and said, "Would you be interested in coming to the paper? We're trying to figure out what the future of the internet's going to be with the newspaper, and we want you to do some videos since you know that kind of. We want to do some videos on our website and see what that can generate." And I'd been there just a couple of months, and they came to me and said, "Would we'd like you to write?" And I said, "Well, I don't even know what that entails." They said, "Well, we've seen some of the editorials you do and the commentary that you've done in television, and we think that would translate." And I said, "Well, gosh," I'll give it a shot, but I said, I don't know if I can find my voice there. I'm very comfortable verbally communicating. I don't know if I can still translate that into a written form, but I said I'll give it a shot. And I've been doing that now 16 years, and I
Yeah,
still
and what you do is it to me, it's a conversation. I mean,
well,
you write the way you talk.
okay,
And
well,
so
yeah,
it just comes
good,
out. I mean, it's almost like when I turn to the Sunday paper and I turn to
right.
that section first and read it, it's like having a conversation with a friend.
Well, thank
And
you.
that's
Yeah.
exactly what you wanted it to do. Listen, we got to run, but
Okay.
I want to say this to you. You've
Hmm.
been a dear friend. You're a man of faith. You've had a great career, but you're not done yet, and I love that too. You still got a lot to give. You
Well,
still got a lot
thanks.
to write about, and
Thanks.
it's going to be good. So thank you today for being
Thanks,
with
Rick.
us on Shaboom.
All the best. Thank you.
Good stuff, my friend.
Yes.
Really, really good.
Well,
Uh,